All right. Well, Jamie, if you're game for it, we can go ahead and jump on the lines and talk to Ryan in Michigan.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right. Ryan, what's on your mind today?
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm kind of shy.
Heard.
Go ahead, man. We don't
I'm sorry.
bite.
Okay, so I am an atheist. I've been for pretty much my whole life. I find all religion not necessarily nonsensical, but not make sense, and I just don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I'm not saying this is of you guys, but a lot of atheists out there, there's a big thing where atheists have a problem with people being religious.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, we can acknowledge that and kind of respond to it if you like. Was there more to your question before we jump in?
Oh, it's just okay. My thing is that even though I'm not really religious myself, I don't really see a problem with people being religious as long as they're not hurting people. And
Right.
if they are happy by these beliefs, then who am I to try to take it away from them, you know?
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I mean, that question of is it harming people is complex, and we can get into it a little bit. I will say, since we're already kind of here in the discussion, that there is a very intellectual, I think we could call it, argument that's important here about separation of church and state, about the way that people vote, about whether that sort of fool's gold, irrational happiness is a true happiness. And there's a lot we can delve into there. But because your question is about hate, it's about emotion, I want to certainly acknowledge for myself that I don't hate religion. But for me, I had a very pronounced period or phase where I went from being a Christian to a person who doesn't believe to, yeah, I guess atheist is the right thing to call me. Not that it matters, not that I care. Where I eventually wanted to get into atheist activism because as I began to study psychology and I began to learn about meditation and hypnosis and mindfulness and sort of the messiness of our own brains, of our own minds, I began to really recognize how these aren't just beliefs that people hold on to because they're nice and warm and fuzzy, but that there is some very real manipulation that goes into modern religion. And I don't say that as if every pastor or congregate is sitting there twirling their snidely whiplash mustache, cackling about the evils that they want to explode upon the world, but rather just that the way that music is used in church, the way that repetition is used in church, the sort of ambiguity of the scriptures and all of these things is a kind of virus, the way that Daryl Ray describes in his book, The God Virus. And feeling manipulated in that way definitely made me angry. It brought up a lot of concerns for what other people are experiencing, and it made me want to jump into all of this. We can unpack all of that here in just a moment, but I want to give you and Jamie a chance to jump in.
Yeah, go ahead and respond if you'd like, Ryan, and then I'll give you my 2 cents.
When do you say music, do you mean the music that's yes, our Lord and Jesus, he's awesome, or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, any form of religious music, really any form of music. I don't mean to single it out as if every hymn or, 90s Christian pop or whatever is inherently evil and MK Ultra manipulative. But rather, I think people underestimate the significance of music to impact our thinking in a lot of ways, to generate a reliable emotional response. And singing in community with others under very specific circumstances. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I really don't want to imply that people are completely against their will being brainwashed. but I do want to recognize the way that this alters our consciousness, the way that this impacts our mood and our emotion on levels that we don't always recognize as they're happening, and seeing how people could use that in very manipulative ways. I mean, I've had the opportunity on this network to interview like former religious leaders, and I've talked to people who played music in church, and they'll tell you pretty much to a man that there's a specific time in the ceremony or in the service where we're starting to adjust the tone of the music, where the lighting goes down in just the right way, and we're switching to these very particular keys. And it reliably creates a deep emotional, physiological response in the people listening and participating in it. And all that is fine and great and wonderful. But there is so much messaging that that is the power of the Holy Spirit, that that is somehow divine. And that's just not the case. We can encounter those same things from a secular worldview. And it seems very disingenuous to use those tools to push a narrative that just isn't true.
Mm. Now, just to sort of give my 2 cents on the matter, I went through a phase of this sort of angry atheist phase. Even though I didn't really come out in religion myself, I became more and more disillusioned with people peddling religion as a means to an end to get their way, and I had venom for it. And I will honestly say that I do ascribe to the idea that all other things being equal, the world would likely be a better place if we could leave religion behind and replace it with secular alternatives. However, while again I say there is no minimum safe dose of bullshit, and I think that the epistemology, the method of thinking that leads people to be able to be religious, is inherently flawed, I'm also a humanist, and I've become more of one the longer I've done this. And I've said it before that now I count myself as humanist first, skeptic second, and atheist third. So if someone's religious practice is causing a subjective overall net good in their circumstance, it's giving them comfort or encouraging them to be a better person, and there isn't an alternative readily available, far be it from me to try and strip them of that belief out of some kind of crusade against, like an intellectual crusade against religion and religious thought in general. Now, if they come to me with those thoughts and ask my opinion, I'm not going to pussyfoot around. I will give them my honest opinion, and I will tell them that while it may be comfortable to think the things you think and believe the things you do, I would encourage you to question why. But yeah, there's far too little comfort in this world as it is. There's far too much strife and pain and misery going around these days that, like you say, if someone's finding comfort in religion and honestly not doing any harm, or even if they're doing good, if they are doing a public good, fighting for things like human rights and dignity and the furtherment of humankind, then we can finish that mission first, and then we can talk about whether the God be real thing is real or not, when we've got a bit more breathing space to do so. So what do you think about that?
Right. I always like there are, I mean, this is true of like all types of groups. There's like all religions, all like groups of type of people, that there's good people in the group and there's bad people in the group. And a lot of time the bad people are the ones that like shine and get the most attention in the group and make the group look bad. You know what I mean?
I hear that, and I don't want to get lost down this rabbit hole, but for myself, philosophically, I don't really ascribe to the idea that there are good people and bad people. But what I do recognize consistently when we look at the impact of religion on our culture and our society is a whole lot of trauma. Certainly there's a lot to be said about the way our governance is run and what our priorities are and how we want to be making those decisions based on fact, based on science, based on data and information, rather than on archaic beliefs. And so, I have sort of a vested interest in that sense of helping to participate in a well-informed electorate just on that specific level. But when we start to dig into any specific religion, sure, we'll find good people or bad people, or maybe just people doing things that make the world a better place or a worse place, however we want to try and define or measure any of those ideas. But we will consistently see people given false information about their bodies, about their sexuality, about who they should love or how they should love or how they should think and which thoughts are wrong or evil. And there's demonstrable pain caused by all of these things. So you started out your call by talking about whether or not it's causing harm, or if it's not causing harm, why can't we just let it be? And to that, I say, yeah, fine. If you can show me that it's not causing harm, we can just let it be. But folks like Jamie and I, everybody you saw in Crew Cram, Kelly, we're here because we see the harm that religion is causing in our world. And far be it from us to just take people's beliefs away from them. But if through conversation and debate and sharing of good information and sharing of strong philosophically sound arguments, we can help people to recognize the lack of truth in these religious beliefs and the harm in these religious beliefs, then I feel like we're working to contribute to a marginally better world.
Right. I get that. And I do believe that if there was no religion in the world, then the world would probably be more progressive and be better. Is that the right word to use? Progressive or whatever. But
yeah,
I mean, know.
Potentially.
I just don't know.
It's a difficult thought experiment because people are going to have magical thoughts, right? It's pretty inherent to who we are as humans. Mm-hmm. So if we were to try to imagine a world without religion, it would look remarkably different from the world that we live in. Religion has a function. It offers a service, if you want to say that, in our culture historically and currently. I mean, it helps to organize people. It helps to bring people together. It helps people to get on the same page about certain ideas. And that is not an inherently bad thing, but what are the ideas that they're surrounding, that they are coming together around? There is no way to really imagine what our world would look like without religion. We wouldn't have the same experiences of colonialism or nationalism, or maybe even organized government in city-states. It gets almost impossible to even conceive of what that world would look like. But I'm willing to make the argument that we now in 2025 have more sophisticated ways of understanding the world than we have in the past. And I'd like to see us progress towards those better ideas.
Yeah. And the thing is with the religion in general, I mean, there may be exceptions, but I haven't really seen one, is that certain base tenets, regardless of what religion you are, is that usually it involves worship, and worship can be seen, I would argue, as an inherently immoral thing. No one should worship. You shouldn't worship anything. I don't think anything is deserving of worship. Admiration, fine. Aspiration, cool. Worship, I don't know. It also involves rules, dogma, or a plan. To know, some people find this comfort that God has a plan for me. There's a plan for me. I find that personally, again, stifling, to think that everything's already planned out for you, that everything that's going to happen to you, good or bad, is for a reason that you often aren't aware of. Lots of religions have that. And then, it's the whole thought policing aspect. A lot of them, apart from, I can't think of any that don't have at least some doctrine of these are good things to think and these are bad things to think, and we're going to have you self-police that and induce guilt in doing so. And even you don't even have to be in religion to sort of suffer that guilt. When I was a young man, as young men do, we explore our bodies and it's perfectly natural and normal. But because I was in a Christian nation and there's just this overarching thing that being sexually experimental, even in the most basic terms of like, what's that? What does it do? Is somehow wrong. I was infused with guilt from a religion I wasn't even in. So it's these things that make me a little bit leery about it.
Yeah, I don't know. In my perfect world, there would be just everyone would respect each other, no matter what we believed.
Yeah. Yeah. And, not to belabor the point, but at least one concern I have about a great number of religions is that dogma that Jamie mentioned that says, well, sure, I can respect your belief as an atheist, but I'm so concerned about your eternal soul, and I would feel so terrible if you were to suffer in hell because I didn't push and push and push and push. I mean, just using a, evangelical Christian sort of perspective, it would be kind of a shitty thing to not go desperately out of your way to convince people that hell is real and to rescue them from it. And that makes respect for their beliefs remarkably, remarkably challenging. It's very hard to hold those two things at the same time. And when we bring in this sort of magical thinking with very dire, epic, cosmic circumstances, we're talking about all of eternity, then how you treat people on a day-to-day basis or even, crusading against their lives becomes a lot less significant. And that's a very concerning, very dangerous position to take.
Yeah, and I don't want a dogpile. And this is not an attack on you, Ryan. We don't attack people, we attack ideas. But the idea of a world where everyone respects everyone else's opinions unilaterally, I don't think is possible. Because there are certain ideas and certain concepts that I find so abhorrent and are, through knowledge of the sciences and things like anthropology and psychology, we know are harmful. That if someone's opinion is that, children should be able to get married to adults at 9 years old, or it's perfectly fine to kill people out if you're just having a bad day, if these are their honestly held opinions, I would have to abrogate some of my own core morality, my own core ethics, to even try and respect that. So there are certain concepts that I couldn't respect, not without being a different person. So in that case, I don't think that perfect world exists. And if it did exist, it wouldn't be perfect. It would be fraught with people being forced to tolerate the intolerable. Doesn't seem groovy to me, man, but that's just my opinion, ironically.
Poplar's paradox of intolerance is an idea worth exploring. Ryan, if I may, I'm curious if you see or acknowledge any harm in your own life that's been caused by religion. And, I don't mean to be dramatic about it, but harm might be as simple and straightforward as not being able to go to a liquor store when it's convenient for you on a Sunday afternoon. Or it may be much deeper about, how you love or how you experience your body or how you experience your own thoughts and minds. Is there anything there that's worth being curious about?
Okay. Before I answer that, when I said the perfect world, I wasn't thinking all of the nitty details about
sure.
children and so that's obviously that. But I will answer your question. When I was actually it wasn't enough. A year ago, I watched a YouTube video of a pastor saying that if you play video games, you will go to hell. And I personally play video games because I like them, but for some reason I have OCD, so it's kind of maybe that's why. But for some reason, it like really affected me for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
It made me feel guilty for a solid like couple of weeks, but then I got over it.
As a fellow gamer, they're often scapegoated. Now, you can do anything too much. There is such thing as playing too many video games if it's stopping you from doing other things that you need to do. But that's the same with anything. You can watch too much TV. You can do too much exercise. You can do anything to extremes. But often they will scapegoat the new and the unusual, especially to audiences that aren't as knowledgeable about them. And so that you were affected and felt guilty for it, I'm sorry that was, I feel for you, man. Like, that sucks. Because it's just a pastime. It's an art form. It's a medium to explore and interact with, have fun with. I could wax lyrical about gaming for hours, but I won't. I'd be kicked off the show. But this is what we mean. These tiny threads of bad thinking, you might say. Not bad thinking as if this is a bad thought, but bad thought methodology, bad epistemology. It's just like Christy said, it's a virus. It infects people. It moves through populations, and because we're human and we are empathetic and we care about what our fellow man, woman, and child think about us, our fellow person, we can't help but absorb what they say. And sometimes it hits you even if you know that it shouldn't. And that's yet another danger of these dogmas, because you may not believe in it, but they exist. And kind of like radioactive materials, you get caught in the field and you get affected, whether you want to be or not.
Yeah, so Ryan, I don't necessarily need you to... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say it's not my hope or goal that at the end of this phone call, you're ready to lace up your boots and suit up and join the fight against religion or anything quite silly like that. But I do wonder where this question comes from for you. What concerns you might have about the people around you and their experience of religion, and how it may or may not be benefiting them, may or may not be harming or benefiting you. How does this become personal for you to be curious about this question?
Well, I used to be like a hardcore atheist. Like I said, still am an atheist. But I used to be like, oh, religion is a cancer to society and it should be abolished, blah, blah, blah. And that's because I got hurt by it before. But I interacted with Christians like at work, because some of my coworkers are Christians, and they're good people.
Heard.
And they just have different opinions than me. And I shouldn't have to ostracize myself from them because of that.
Absolutely not.
Right. Yeah, agreed. And, that idea of respect that we've already sort of tiptoed around, and what it means to different people and different contexts, and tolerating the intolerable. I mean, it is all very tricky. I've never wanted to be insensitive about it, but I've taken moments of like clips from this show where I've been discussing a particular topic, and I've tried to show it to religious people in my life, not to convert them, but to ask them sincerely, hey, is the way that I talked about your Catholic belief here, is it accurate? Does it feel cold or unkind? Because yes, I disagree with it, but as somebody who I respect, as somebody who I care about, does this language feel person-centered? Does it feel reasonable to you? Both of my parents are still believers, and both of them have actually come into the studio and watched me do live shows out of a love and support for me, even though some of the ideas that we talked about on the show were very disagreeable to them. And, both of them coming in individually had experiences of, oh, no, it's fine. I was there to support you. It's okay that I don't agree. But then, afterwards, having had that emotional experience of listening to me blaspheme for an hour and a half, they were both kind of stirred up and wanted to talk about some uncomfortable feelings. And I I very much respect the impact of our words and of what we do on this show. And I want that impact to be a net positive for the world, not just us sort of jumping around saying, look at how smart we are. We figured it out. God isn't real. Like, it's about hoping to create a better, happier, healthier, safer world for everybody. The audience can be the judge of where we miss the mark on that. But I certainly want to say that it's embedded in our mission to be working towards respectful conversations where we are actually promoting not just atheism, but critical thinking, secular humanism, like Jamie mentioned, and most importantly, that idea of the separation of church and state so that everybody has a freedom from some of the oppressive beliefs that we might find more intolerable.
Yeah, abolishing religion is not part of our mission. I feel that religious practice may fall out of style, so to speak, if our mission succeeds and we start engendering actual free thought, critical thinking, and secular humanism in the populace at large. But that's going to be a beneficial outcome, not a direct result, so to speak. So yeah, we're not here to kill religion. We're here to help people think engender better thought patterns, grow empathy, and just become better versions of themselves if they can.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, well, Ryan, so you ready to lace up those boots, or where do you go from here with any of this?
Religion does do a lot of harm. It does. Like, a lot of the practices are outdated. We used to, burn witches and stuff like that. But there's just, a part of me, just as a part of my morality, that I just don't feel comfortable trying to take that away from people to make them happy.
Heard. No one says you have to, and the fact that you had that time where you were venomous towards religion, and you, as you said yourself, it was a trauma response, and as with a lot of the worst aspects of religion stemming from the trauma that it causes, that don't make decisions or form worldviews out of a response to trauma. Often you'll just be seeking to hurt back. And again, I'm not a counselor. That's more Christy's kind of vibe. But being able to better deal with those emotions and maybe turn them into something more positive, turn anger into passion, turn hurt into a wish to empathize and to stop other people from hurting. That's kind of what we're about here. And don't beat yourself up about it, about being that angry atheist in the past. We've all gone through that, and a lot of us cringe at it. But I will espouse what I've heard off the internet, that cringe is good. It reminds you how much you've grown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're here on YouTube. We're here in your podcast store, not on a bullhorn outside of a church trying to denounce people's beliefs. Certainly, there are places where that type of very hard-footed activism is important. But we're here to encourage people to think a little bit differently. We would argue to think a little bit better. We're certainly not here to steal anybody's beliefs or to force a particular worldview on anybody.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay. Any more thoughts for us, Ryan?
I appreciate you guys a lot.
Well, I appreciate you too.
I think what you're doing is lovely.
Oh, thank you very much for the pleasure of the call. It was, I think, it was very constructive and the kind of thing that we want to kind of espouse. Because having a verbal dust up with a cocky theist is all well and good for the clicks and the views, but this is where we get to the meat and potatoes of having proper conversations, I think.
Yeah. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being open-minded, kind, and respectful, and for taking whatever steps you needed to take to heal from that sort of like aggressive, angry atheist phase, because I know it can be a very tempting well to fall down. And it sounds like you've worked your way through it in some important ways. So we really appreciate you and hope you have a great Easter Sunday, I suppose.
Yeah. Celebrated in
420. Glad to know.
420 indeed.